For the Republican response to the State of the Union, they decided to shy away from many policy prescriptions and go a bit more towards the folksy. Here is Joni Ernst.
We felt them in Red Oak, the little town in southwestern Iowa where I grew up and am still proud to call home today. As a young girl, I plowed the fields of our family farm. I worked construction with my dad. To save for college, I worked the morning biscuit line at Hardee's. We were raised to live simply, not to waste. It was a lesson my mother taught me every rainy morning. You see, growing up, I had only one good pair of shoes. So on rainy school days, my mom would slip plastic bread bags over them to keep them dry. But I was never embarrassed, because the school bus would be filled with rows and rows of young Iowans with bread bags slipped over their feet.
Okay, now, first of all, demographically stupid, because most of this country no longer lives in rural, small town, farming areas. So demographically, that's pitched to an America that doesn't exist anymore, essentially. And by the way, is getting killed, and that's a whole other conversation, how the Democrats could speak to the farming communities and all that. But, so demographically mistimed. Secondly, animatronic. I mean, that's the right. I mean, it's just...
You see, when I was young, like, she can't even deliver the line. It's supposed to be like, you see, when I was young, like, Obama would have sold that line. It would have actually come across as folksy, perhaps. But I listened really fast. I listened to the Opie and Anthony, or what's left of Opie and Anthony, every once in a while. And those guys are generally more on the right. And their entire morning broadcast was about how fake she was and how phony. And the main host said, when I was a kid, I put bags over my shoes, and I'm not even buying your little speech. It's not even connecting with me, and I did that.
Whose idea was it, sorry, Jimmy, whose idea was it to have the rebuttal be in a room alone?
They do it every year.
No, I know they do it every year.
Yeah.
And look, it could have been worse. It could have been Marco Rubio running out of spit.
It could have been Bobby Jindal coming out and doing his Kenny from 30 Rock imitation.
Yeah.
That was the worst.
Yeah, so there's no shortage of how many bad ones there are, but there's something about the optics of standing alone in a room that I think make it seem more lonely. You're already the loser because you're giving the rebuttal. And somebody made a great point, I wish I could remember who said this on Twitter, but there's something about it that seems like a hostage video. Doesn't it seem like there's a gun right off camera, like, say this shit,
The great
and
Satan.
that's why she talks like a robot. It just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
And also, a rebuttal technically you should be rebutting the things that were said in the speech. Now, I get it that the speech is released a couple hours earlier, but a rebuttal really should be written after the speech so you can truly, but I know that's not how anything really works.
Well, but you remember the part where Obama talked about the kind of bags he put on his shoes?
Exactly.
He was just mad with, well, we put bread bags. Fair
And
enough.
we wrapped prayer rugs around our feet as we walked up. Yeah, that was not a popular line, understandably.
If the GOP is able to successfully implement their policies, people won't be able to afford bags to put on their feet anymore because they won't be able to afford bread. And putting bags, a woman putting the right to put a bag on her feet is the one act of control over her body that Joni Ernst won't vote against.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Now, I'm glad that you brought up, though, that it seems structurally that this is made to produce awkward moments that, like, you're trying to show that you connect with the American people, but you're literally not even connecting with anyone in the room with you. So J.R. Jackson has cut a couple of the previous rebuttals, and you can see the pattern of how awkward it is. Here is Kathy McMorris Rogers, at least as folksy as Joni Ernst.
I got a letter from Betty in Spokane. Here, no challenge is too great and no dream too big. Kathy, you need to save this money so you can go to college one day. But it wasn't long before I met Brian, a retired Navy commander, and now we have 3 beautiful children. We the people have been the foundation of America since her earliest days. If you would have told me as a little girl that I would one day put my hand on the Bible and be sworn in as the 200th woman to serve in the House of Representatives, I wouldn't have thought it possible. Always, always dream for more. And so I did. I saved, or without a dollar to our name. My dad drove a school bus, and my mom worked as a part-time bookkeeper. Whether you're a girl in Kettle Falls or a boy from Brooklyn, the true State of the Union lies in your heart and in your home.
To
wow.
be fair, that video, however we mock it now, did create the political superstar that is Kathy McMorris.
No, but we criticized it at the time. It now seems
Right.
It's marvelous. Give it the Oscar. It's so good in comparison to what we've seen lately.
And why do they think we care about their biographies anyway? I mean,
Because
you know,
we desperately want real people, so they have to at least give the old college try of pretending that they're
not
real
to
people.
mention Joni Ernst worked construction, and there are no construction jobs now. And if she gets her way, there never will be.
Not even in the Keystone Jobs bill?
I
that
want
you referred to?
I want to give my
Snap.
State of the Union response, right? To talk about my biography. You know, it's like I grew up on the south side of Chicago where people beat the shit out of their kids. I was beating the shit out of, all my friends were too. And we learned something, that you're going to get the shit beaten out of you in life.
Yeah, well,
Is that real too? I don't know.
yeah. It just seems
They beat you bloody, you put a
disingenuous.
bag over it.
It seems disingenuous. First off, that you have to play up this story of struggle. Now, everybody has struggled. Even people that are middle class now, or upper middle class, or upper middle class, or upper class, their forefathers, their generations before them struggled. But you can also come from middle class or upper middle class and still be a good person. So they keep talking about everything. I struggled back then. Something just doesn't jive right to me. And I agree with your point about the rural part of the country. Like, they're going to something that barely exists anymore.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
what's the response to that should be, it's like, yes, of course, Joni Ernst, you were born at a time when you could work hard and lift yourself out of poverty, but thanks to 30 years of trickle-down economics, that's no longer the case in America.
Yeah.
We now have less economic mobility than Europe. So fantastic, your policies have fucked over for former you.
Yeah, let's do a little flashback to, I believe this is 2012? I could be wrong, but here is Marco Rubio.
The world is a better place when America is the strongest nation on earth. But we can't remain powerful if we don't have an economy that can afford it. In the short time that I've been here in Washington, nothing has frustrated me more than false choices like the one the president laid out tonight. The choice isn't just between big government or big business.
So awkward. But I like
really
that at least
awkward,
there they tried to make it seem like he was giving an address from the Oval Office. Like they tried to give it that vibe with the open window.
And he
everything.
gave you the gestures that
energy.
mean so much, because then, John, you know, and
It's
who
just so
coaches these guys?
But that's what I mean about the awkwardness of standing in a room alone and the fakeness of it. Because if he was someone that was within himself, telling the truth, you would be able to pause for a drink and it not be awkward. But they put themselves in such an odd situation with one camera and a fake background and something that's so rehearsed and prepared that taking a pause for a drink suddenly seems ludicrous, which is why that thing went viral.
You know, I had a great idea listening to you, which I had to throw away, and I'll explain why. Which was, wouldn't it be great, since you're absolutely right, wouldn't it be great if what they did for response to the State of the Union, they sat with some ordinary people who had questions about what they heard the president say, and then they said, Senator, could you explain that to me? The problem is none of them could explain anything. But in an ideal world, that would be the perfect rebuttal. Human, normal, interactive. Yeah, you have a little sip of water as you're answering the question.
Or just one other thought on that. I mean, imagine if they literally just picked someone who could sit there, watch what happened, and say, you know what, I wrote down a couple things. And I know some of these ideas are obviously somewhat pre-prepared, but let me just actually respond. Not give breadbasket.
Like we did.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, they should follow us. But you know what I mean? Like, it would be so much more human, and that's what they're all missing there.